Have you ever given up on the game because of public outcry? I've only seen about a few games that cause people to drop it. You have Hogwarts Legacy, Avowed, Dragon Age of Velgard, and many more I can't really name. Truthfully, besides the first one, the other games aren't really worth it to drop. The main reason people want to drop Velgard because of how it ran, and also because people felt the story and gameplay were weak. Also, people felt that the game was too PC, and disliked it because of the topics it tried to introduce. I believe Avowed was dropped because of the perception from big streamers. I can't really speak much on the game, so I didn't play it and don't plan to play it. There are just a ton of things that isn't included with this version of the game, so I just have no reason to play it. Hogwarts Legacy had a ton of controversy that had nothing to do with the game. It had more to do with the creator of Harry Potter than anything else. I don't really plan to talk about the game, so I felt like I talked about it before. So yeah, nah. Also, the company lead didn't have a squeaky clean pass. People kind of found more reasons to hate on the game. The hate went extreme to the point that you may have gotten hate viewers if you decided to stream the game. I don't think I really streamed the game until a year after it came out. Then again, when it was announced, I was touring, so it wasn't like I could actually stream it. But that was the main reason I avoided streaming it, even when I was able to. I didn't really want to deal with people coming in and hating me because of it. Thinking back, I don't even believe much would have happened to me, so I think most that were targeted were big streamers. Funny thing is that I made another Steam account so I could play the game without people knowing. It was a weird thing to do, and I don't plan to do that again. Truthfully, if I plan to hide that I'm playing a game, then I'll just play on my Steam Deck. So, I thought that the game we are going to talk about today was a completely different game. I believe I had to deal with leaving to go on tour, and having very little time to actually game, so I chose it. I thought it was a game that was said to be completely bad. I let those bad reviews affect me. Funnily enough, I have that specific game in my wishlist. It hasn't remotely left my wishlist since it was added. But yeah, I let public opinion affect me when it shouldn't have. Truthfully, I decided to go back to the game after quitting it because I felt it deserved a proper playthrough. Blacktail is probably the weirdest game I played this year, and I mean that in a good way. So I believe that this game is something that follows Slavic folklore. I don't really know if this follows a well known folklore, if this was made just for this game. But anyway, this is a folklore story I still don't really get. So in this game, you follow the girl that is just like me when I go out, masked up. Okay, now that the jump joke was said, let me start talking about this game. I wish that I could reasonably say why our protagonist wore a mask, without spoiling everything. I'm also not saying that because I may have forgotten, since it has been a while since I beat the game. Definitely not because of that at all. Anyway, you're a girl that wears a mask. The mask has been with you since you were little. The reason you know this is because the game plays with flashbacks a lot to tell the story. But going back to the mask, it is pretty important to the game. The main reason is because it is used to showcase the options chosen from the game. So in this game, you have morality choices that you pick as you progress. My first morality choice was evil, because I didn't realize I was shooting at something trapped. So in the game, birds can get trapped in what is essentially a fly trap. My first time seeing this weird, withering darkness, I thought it was a monster, so I shot it. Also, I'm gonna add this in. I know what I wrote, because it was like withering, like moving around essentially. In my head, I was like, that sounds like the right word. And then, I don't know if it's the right word. Yeah, I have no idea why I shot first and asked question later. I shot with my bow, and so I did an evil action. And I then made sure to free the birds every time I saw them, because the birds are very important support in the game. I will explain that in the next section. But this game is very dark and interesting. Not shockingly dark, but kind of tame. The story is very simplistic, because you are finding out what happened to the people you grew up with. That is the story in a nutshell. In order to access your bow to attack enemies in the game, you need arrows. To get arrows, you have to craft them, and the materials you need are branches and feathers. Now you see why you should free the birds from their cages. But for the most part, you don't really have a reason to be gun ho. There are creatures in the game that will want to fight you, but you don't really have to fight them. That means that this game isn't really action intensive, but there is action. You have dashes, some sort of magic based attack to push enemies back, and of course your trusty bow and arrow. But, unless there's a mandatory boss fight, kind of run away from any fights you encounter. I have no idea if the evil side features more fights, or if there are different ways to go about situations depending on your alignment. I would believe there are different ways to go about the situations because this game runs on a morality scale. When it comes to missing out on content, I would have to say that it's very easy to skip content. So something I didn't really pay attention to was the season cycle. Truthfully, I didn't even know that there was different cycles that represented what part of the story you're currently in. Because of this, there's content that is locked behind certain seasons. That means that if there is a certain quest that you can only get during the first season, and you miss it, you miss out on it. But the good thing is, at a certain part of the game, you can go back to other seasons, so that you can do the content that you missed. Also, there's definitely content you'll miss out on because of your alignment. There's a certain quest chain that you basically lock yourself out of by not agreeing to what she wants. Now, I have no idea what happens when you finish these quest lines, because I don't think I even got that close to touching the end. The beauty of these games is finding out what is in the world, what it holds. Now, going into this game, don't really expect it to be big, because it's an indie game. You start it up, see this very stylized world. Don't really have much expectations of it. Well, I didn't, because I try not to expect the game to be good as soon as I start. World itself can feel boring, because you will see the same enemies throughout the world. Thankfully, once you go to a new area, you see newer enemy types. The best way to explain it is that certain areas will contain certain types of enemies. That just means that you won't encounter certain enemies depending on where you go. I need to explain this better. Again, not gonna be scripted, whatever. So, expect it to be like a certain zone, right? A certain area, right? And in one zone, you're gonna have certain enemy types you're only going to encounter in that zone. It's gonna be the same. You're gonna probably see a sprinkle of like certain enemies you're always gonna see throughout the game, but certain zones will only have that one or two particular type of enemies compared to the other zones. Why did I explain this better than I could on fucking paper? I don't fucking know. But yeah, that's what this game basically holds. They have different zones which have different types of enemies that you'll really only see. Now the thing is, like I said before, you'll spring a lot of the same enemies will be sprinkled about other zones, so you'll still see certain enemies you saw only in the other zones or saw in the other zones. That's always gonna be a thing. The enemies aren't really that varied for the most part because, like I said, it's an indie game. It would take a lot of time and work to have all these different enemies, have them to do all these different things, and also make them like react differently, do different things, make the combat also exciting as well. It's a lot of work, especially for an indie company. But yeah, that was my way of explaining it. So I explained it better. Yay. But for the most part, I wasn't really impressed with combat or the enemy types in the game. I don't think you get to fun or hard enemies until you get to the end of the game. There are boss fights in the game, but for the most part, it isn't based on your combat ability. You can easily run out of arrows during a fight. It means you have to make sure you have enough resource materials to make arrows. I dive more to resource management than to the difficulty of bosses. Thankfully, the game addresses this by giving you the things needed to heal and craft your arrows. Now, how does resource management feel in the game? So the game actually feels fine when it comes to resource management since everything is centered around it. Healing is based on a plant you find around the world, and they'll always respawn, so you never really have to worry about that. I said earlier that I rarely died in combat. I did die around the world looking for resources. If you run out of arrows, and there's no resources around you, you probably don't have to go far to find what you need. Now, that is not always true. The game tends to have some puzzle-like areas. So there really isn't much or any real puzzles in this game. You can say getting around can be puzzle-like. So in this game, the bow is something that is integral to everything you do. So because this world is pretty big, it would get overwhelming if you have to walk around everywhere. There's fast travel of sorts in this game, but not really. So you have a way to fast travel to your hub and back to where you fast travel from. I believe that was the only way to get around. I might be wrong. Remember, it's been a while. Also, I feel like that Velgar script kind of erased any game from my memory. But when it comes to getting around the world, you have a way to zap around the land. So you'll find these weird pillars around the world. Once you actually unlock them, you can warp to them when shooting them with an arrow. It's very useful when trekking through the world. There's another way to go around as well, which is hard to explain. You have to look through this window. I say window loosely because it isn't an actual window. But you have to peer into this window or are transported to the one that mirrors it. The weird thing is that sometimes you can't even see the opposite one. So I tend to not take them unless I feel like it would lead me to where I want to go. Also, fighting certain enemies give you materials to level up your skill tree of sorts. So, for the most part, leveling up your skill tree just levels the abilities you have. The good thing about it is that it changes how these abilities react. It can change what your dash does, or the effect your push patch abilities do. For the most part, you get the materials from playing the game, also finishing quests. But I feel like it should be apparent that I didn't do all the quests in the game. So that means I missed out on getting the skill tree fully fleshed out. Truthfully, the only thing I got done on the skill tree were things that followed the main route. So I was able to unlock all the arrow types. Also the abilities for the main character. Again, there are things I need to progress through the story. So you can't miss out on it. I guess you can, if you don't go back to level, but then your progression would be halted. The funny thing is that the game introduces the different arrow types to you, but you have to unlock the ability to craft the arrows. So if you want to be able to use these arrows to enhance your gameplay, to get to doing things and unlocking your skills. So the story, like most games in this vein, is shown throughout the backstory. You get this kind of unprofessional voice acting job whenever the narration begins. Now, I have played many games, and some games have had voice acting that just puts me off from wanting to look at the cutscenes. The reason I don't dislike it from this game, because it just sounds like a regular guy reading the lines. In a game that tells a folklore story, it kind of makes sense to have that random uncle talking. I have no idea what a Slavic uncle would sound like, since I'm not that. But it gives me that vibe. The vibes of a random guy at a bar weaving tall tales for change to buy beer. It just felt like a story you would hear somewhere in your hometown, and not really this perfectly crafted speech. Like it had its imperfections. That's what made it memorable to me. It's because I'm all about replayability. It's easy to say this game is replayable. You have two different paths to go in the game, which I guess truthfully could be three. I don't know if the game would actually include a neutral path for playthrough, so I'll just say that there is two different paths. But the paths are good and evil, and there are also checkpoints in each path. That just means you can reach saint status by doing everything good, or devil status by doing everything evil. Now everything has their own names that you find out by playing and looking at the menu. Like I said earlier, I missed out on a ton of content. That means that I missed out on becoming what a saint is in the game, which is fine because that just presents more things to do in another playthrough. I don't really know what changes when it comes to story if I were to be evil, but I guess that would be an interesting surprise with another playthrough. The biggest thing that would take me away from playing this game again would be combat. Like I said earlier, the combat isn't really something that draws me in. As much as I love archery in video games, the combat is more mini game than actual combat. You shoot things down to distract the enemy and shoot them, and do this until the enemy is down. Then you start the actual fight, and have to shoot a certain part of the body in order to do damage, while avoiding things in your way. This combat is followed throughout the whole game. Even though there is always different things in the way, it is still in the same order. That just means the rules to combat doesn't change, even if the enemies are different. I also found myself running away from the smaller enemies in the game in order to save materials. For the most part, the enemies would only take 1 to 2 shots to take them down. I didn't want to waste arrows on enemies that gave me nothing. I regret missing all the mission content. Truthfully, the story wasn't really something I would have truly cared for. You kind of listen in to characters in the game and help them out in the way you deem fit. But other than that, I didn't really see how it added to your story. Again, it does add in the grand scheme of things because everything you do adds into your morality scale. I just wish these side missions were more grand than just seeing the characters and that being it. There are side missions that actually do have more elaborate things to do, which is great. I feel like that is rarer than the seek out the character side mission. Again, I may be wrong, so I missed out on things, but giving you my experience with the game. Overall, I like the game, but dislike the combat. I don't really know why I missed out on a ton of content. I tried to do everything, but it was a chore to search everywhere for missions. I feel like this game would benefit with having a better explained path towards side quests. There were weird markers that told you where certain characters were, that give you quests. But sadly, that didn't really help much when it came to finding them. Then again, I feel like I'm complaining that the game doesn't hold your hand enough, so I will stop. But yeah, I was too lazy to explore this big map to find out where all the characters were, if they would actually give me quests. The story wasn't the most exciting story, but still was memorable because of the storytelling. Like I said earlier, the voice acting was memorable because it wasn't professional. So, when I say professional, I don't mean like it doesn't sound professional or wasn't like recorded well. Like it actually was recorded well. It just didn't give me that vibe of a crisp voice reading the stuff, like the thing, right? Because the thing, like I'm not a voice actor, my voice is shit. But you hear voice actors, right? And it sounds this really fucking professional voice. This voice you hear a voice and like, oh, you can tell they're a voice actor, right? Like it's a very clear voice, very like poignant, I guess is the best way to say it. It sounds great, but hearing it again, it wasn't aesthetically pleasing. I guess that's the best way to say it. It wasn't an aesthetically pleasing voice to hear for voice acting. And I don't mean it's not aesthetically pleasing because it was to me, but it wasn't aesthetically pleasing to most ears, right? It was a different language that you don't really hear in video games a lot. So that's why I'm saying it wasn't a professional voice acting, not because it wasn't professional, but because it wasn't something I was used to hearing. It's the best way to say it. Like I feel like I'm not giving them credit for the voice acting, but I'm saying it wasn't something I'm used to hearing in video games or truthfully in any type of media. The artwork is really nice. Psychology gives you that hand-drawn vibe. There's also a ton of content left to explore. It gives me the vibe that exploring is definitely rewarded. I was just lazy. And then when I explored a ton, so I kept just running away from enemies so I didn't waste resources. I was happy I went back to the game again. It sucks when you give up on a good game. I actually had to cancel a game, but not for the same reasons. So the reason I initially quit this game, because of frustration real life things, but also because I believed it was a different game. The main reason I quit the other game, which was Shadow Warriors, was because I lost my data. Let's just say that the local profile included things that I didn't need to, and I tried to rename it slash remove it. I kinda wasn't thinking. By doing what I did, I basically erased all my data. It was even worse, Yeah, I was close to beating the game, but basically I had to quit it and miss out on content. I tried to start the second game. Because other characters showed up in the game, I was left with questions. The second game also felt more like Borderlands than anything else. The first game felt like Doom, but without music. I kinda was hoping an amazing soundtrack would start playing while I was fighting, but sadly it didn't. It sadly didn't have any of that, and I had to quit the game after going through a lot of the content. But best message is to never let preconceptions guide your opinions. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's been hard to make because I forgot everything about this game. Well, not everything, but certain things that would make it hard to fully explain and review this game. I sadly have been dropping a ton of games because of either lost interest, because I couldn't run the game. I dropped Homefront because it would just lag at certain points, and the auto lagged with the gameplay. Also felt like it was trying to break my PC. Also on the work front, I got some news on the gig, also on the tour as well. The good thing is that my name is in the hat. Bad thing is that it won't be till next year. Not the best review I made, but we work with the memory we have. Anyway, my name is Only the Incubus, and that has been my time. Hope you all have a great day and an amazing week. Later days. Alright, love you all. Love you all. Saying kisses consensually. Mwah. You all. Love you all. Peace. Alright, see you all in the next one. Later. Bye. Love you. Bye. Ah.